Thank you everyone for being here. Let's start. So today we'll focus on measurement side of things. We will focus on the tools that we want to have in our bag when we do Wi-Fi validations, troubleshooting, preparing for the design. And it will be very practical and extremely interesting, as always, I hope. So who we are, you probably know. If you don't, Matt and Mac, we are directors of the ECSE, which is Ekahau University and product marketing. And we have Stu and Dale, last minute addition, that are helping us out like pros. Okay, wireless Stu, Dale, hello guys, super nice to have you here. And let's crack on with a content. So let's start with a simple question. Why do you need a quality measurement device? And what do I mean by a quality measurement device? Some of us might think that Wi-Fi is just the surveys. So by surveys, we mean predictive surveys, predictive designs, doing designs in a software without going on site or measuring anything. But as you will see later today, this is not really the case. On every step of Wi-Fi life cycle, starting from design, going through validations and health checks, troubleshooting, we need to have quality measurement device. We need to ensure that every time we validate our network with something, with a device, it's trustworthy. We can trust the data. Every time we do that, it's the same quality. Heck, if we have 5 engineers covering different floors of the same building at the same time with different measurement devices, we want these devices to be similar to each other, pretty much identical. If we can have that, then we are all good. And the measurement device that gives us the information about the existing RF state of the site that we are designing for. We can measure walls attenuation. We can find interference, find physical security challenges. So we really, really need that device. So to the next question, Matthew.
Yeah. Can I just use dongles? And well, the simple answer really is no. We don't want to be using dongles anymore. I remember the days back when we used to have a laptop with multiple dongles being connected to our USB bus, probably wearing some form of harness to carry our laptop around, and then the dongles knocking into the doors. They draw power from your surveying device, so you need to recharge your surveying device during the day. And not only is it uncomfortable, unpractical, not so mobile, the problem is that really dongles are just so wildly inaccurate. And when you compare, let's say if I was doing a validation survey with the same dongles as what Mac was, and he's walking right behind me, the problem with the dongles is that when you compare the survey results, is that my survey readings might say that I've got fantastic signal strength and I've got minus 50 dB of signal in that particular location. And then you compare the same survey path, same model of dongles, and Mac following me just behind, and you look at his data and it says that you've got minus 85 or minus 80 dBs of signal strength, and Mac's panicking now, scratching his head thinking, gosh, we need to install another access point here. So really, they're just inconsistent. There's too much of a variation between the dongles, and they're just not mobile like we want them to be. So we need to use something as a beauty like this, Mac, don't we?
It is a beauty indeed, and I have my beauty here with me today. The cable is a little bit on the short side, but we will show it to you anyway. So this beauty that we see is Ekahau Sidekick. This is the 2nd generation of Ekahau Sidekick, actually. And because of the dongles inaccuracy and difference in readings, every time you do a survey, sometimes when the RSSI measured by a quality device like a Sidekick, for example, says it's NEC 60, on the dongle, most likely you will see around NEC 60, but sometimes you will see NEC 85, sometimes you will see NEC 45, and just the difference is unacceptable to have in Wi-Fi world. And also, we want to have everything in a single device. We don't want to have tons of different dongles Wi-Fi cards. We would typically have 3 of those, okay, connected to a USB hub, sitting on the Velcro on the back of our massive laptop screen in the past. We don't want to be using a dongle spectrum analyzers because we need to have 3 of those now for 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz. That's another USB hub connecting to our laptop. If you have the 6 dongles, our battery life goes down extremely quickly. And we don't want that, right? We want to enjoy doing a survey as long as we want to, as long as we need to, having everything inside a single device. And that's where we have our beautiful Sidekick. Inside the Sidekick, we have full network cards that we can scan all 3 bands with them very quickly. So even if you're scanning all available channels on 2.4, 5, and 6 at the same time, you don't even have to think about how fast you walk. It's quick, reliable, and accurate. On top of that, we have the spectrum analyzer inside the Sidekick. And actually, we have very nice demos prepared for you to show you how cool the data measured with a Sidekick is, how helpful it is, what challenges it can help solve you in your real life. So if you're a network owner or network integrator, it doesn't matter. You can use Sidekick to make your network thrive, be optimized, work better. It doesn't matter if it's just Wi-Fi or it's wireless operating in the same spectrum band as Wi-Fi. You will find those devices, understand their impact on your Wi-Fi network, and just smash it like there is no tomorrow.
Okay, so moving on to how accurate the Sidekick 2 is, and the Sidekick 2, like Mac said, it scans and captures from 2.4 gigahertz all the way through 6 gigahertz, right into the lower part of 7 gigahertz, and it's extremely precise. What we're looking at here is the median curve of the signal that should be being measured, and we can see that how straight that line is, which means it's basically ridiculously accurate. So you can trust when you go on site to do your validation surveys, or you're doing your health checks, or verifying that your predictive designs are accurate to what you've done inside of Ekahau AI Pro. You can trust that the Sidekick 2 is always going to be giving you a true and consistent reading. But not only just one device is going to be giving you that, we also test multiple, we test all of our devices. Mac is going to tell you about that.
Yes, so what you see here is multiple Sidekicks being tested before they're being released to our valued clients. And there is just one line, like a green line towards the end of the graph, that is a little bit off. And if we have a Sidekick like that, we will not ship it to our clients. So you can rest assured that every single Sidekick device will be almost identical. And that is amazing, even if you have Matt and I starting on both sides of a massive warehouse doing a survey, and then we meet in the middle. We just hit the back button in our survey application. We've used different Sidekicks, but the data will be comparable. It will be of a very, very high quality. So every Sidekick will be pretty much identical. And this is important.
Yeah, massively. So you might be wondering, what are the specs then of the Sidekick 2, and how fast can it capture our Wi-Fi data, Wi-Fi on layer 2 from the Wi-Fi radios or access points, but also capturing any non-Wi-Fi in the environment, so that layer 1 spectrum physical information. So inside of the Sidekick 2, we have got 4 Wi-Fi radios. And if you are using the Sidekick 2 to just scan and capture 2.4 and 5 gigahertz networks, and you are not using it to capture anything on 6 gigahertz, then it's only going to take the Sidekick 2 1.2 seconds to scan through all of the channels before then it's ready to create that buffer and then move on and start capturing again on all of the channels. However, if you want to be scanning all 3 Wi-Fi frequency bands, so 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz, well, the Sidekick 2 can do that in just under 1.7 seconds, which is insanely fast. We remember when everyone was first talking about 6 gigahertz coming to the Wi-Fi market, how people were maybe a bit scared, a little bit worried that they would have to go back to doing stop and go surveys because there's so many channels that we have to scan now, and we're not going to be able to continuously catch that data and walk at that same pace that we did before. And that's just not the case. With the Sidekick 2, it's so lightning fast, it's so accurate. You can just carry on going for your walks, capture your data, and you can walk at your normal pace. If you want to walk at max pace, it might take you a little bit longer. If you want to walk at a faster pace like me, then you could probably get around the site a little bit quicker. So the other really important thing is when we look at the spectrum details of the spectrum analyzer inside of the Sidekick 2, again, it is insanely fast. So the spectrum refresh rate of the spectrum analyzer inside of the Sidekick 2, it does 50 sweeps per second from 2.4 gigahertz all the way through to the bottom part of 7 gigahertz. But not only is it lightning fast for the spectrum analyzer, it also has an even more amazing spectrum resolution where we can go down to 19 kilohertz, which if we was to try and translate that into, I don't know, maybe when you're watching a TV, if you was watching a TV in like standard definition versus high definition versus 4K and then 8K, where you can see that real granular detail, fine detail on the screen, while the Sidekick 2 is, I don't know, like 8K, maybe 16K. You can see the most minute, finite detail of that non-Wi-Fi device. So if you're trying to look for a really narrowband interferer that's causing you some problems in your wireless network, as you do your walk, you're going to be able to see that with the Sidekick 2 from looking at the spectrum analyzer.
You haven't mentioned about a very important fact that the Sidekick has an adjustable strap that is suitable even for you. And Matthew is like, he's that tall. So if he can wear it on the right height, everyone can, okay? So Sidekick is absolutely smashing in that regard as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, look at the 6 gigahertz ecosystem development. This is actually quite mind-blowing. What we are looking at is the speed of adoption certification for Wi-Fi devices across all 3 bands and how many quarters it took for those devices to be certified, actually for 500 devices to be certified. So to get 500 certifications in 2.4 gigahertz band, it took 11 quarters of the year. So 11 quarters is like what, 3 years almost. Then 5 gigahertz was a little bit slower. It took 14, and 6 gigahertz, it took just 7. It's twice as fast. The adoption is twice as fast as when compared to 5 gigahertz.
Yes, and we were trying to look for some information online about the amount of 6 gigahertz devices that are currently out there on the market right now. And we found this one, and unfortunately, it was only up until Q2 of 2022 last year. But you could see back in Q2 of 2022, there was around 792 6 gigahertz or Wi-Fi 6E devices currently on the market. So if you factor in the fact we're pretty much at the end of Q1 of 2023 now, this means there's going to probably be way more than 1,000 6 gigahertz devices on the market now. So we know it's the client devices that drives the market adoption for needing to design and deploy 6 gigahertz networks, and they're coming thick and fast. So Mac is going to talk you through a few devices that are currently out there on the market.
Yeah, so let's talk about Matt's favorite devices, Windows and Android. They started the trend, okay? It wasn't Apple this time. So we've seen Pixel 6 Pros or 6s. We've seen some Chinese devices leading the market when it comes to 6 gigahertz adoption. Windows laptops were actually first on the market as well. I'm not sure if Matthew is happy about that or not, but that's the case. And also, Matt has said that we are looking at more than 1,000 certified devices, but looking at the trend from the previous slide, I would say that we are closer to 1,500 devices. We are pretty much doubling the amount of devices certified with every single quarter. Okay, so that's a lot. Cool. So Matt, why won't you talk us through your favorite brand, you fanboy?
Yes, I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I am a huge Apple fanboy. I have pretty much all of the Apple products that you can have, and was very excited to see that Apple finally started to include 6 gigahertz in their devices now. So if you wanted to buy an Apple device that supports 6 gigahertz, you can get a Mac Mini, the 2023 version. You could get yourselves an iPad, the 11-inch or the 12.9-inch model. They both got 6 gigahertz radios in them now. And also the MacBook Pro. So the 14-inch and the 16 inches models that just came out this year, they have got 6 gigahertz radios in them. And if we look at the trend of Apple and devices supporting new Wi-Fi standards or frequencies, you know, Mac Mini, iPad, laptop, maybe.
And an iPhone. Yeah, so guys, if iPhone 15 has a 6 gigahertz radios, and we're almost certain it will speed up market adoption dramatically. Okay, so later this year, 6 gigahertz will become a commodity. And answering some questions from the chat, Anders, of course, we are running M2 MacBook Pros. What would you expect, my friend? So we have 6 gigahertz here.
Yeah, That's what we're on. That's what we're on right now. So and we did some really cool testing actually of 6 gigahertz, the Apple devices on how they behave on 6 gigahertz networks versus some of the Android devices, which we covered in the Wi-Fi Design Day London presentation that we did, which we will share with everyone on one of these webinars at some point in the future. But the way that the clients behave on 6 gigahertz is very, very interesting indeed. And I think actually we have a poll question lined up, if you wouldn't mind.
So why won't I read the poll? So the question is, are you considering the move to 6 gigahertz in the next 2 years? A, I am already using 6 gigahertz APs. B, I am considering using 6 gigahertz APs, but within the next 2 years. Or C, I am exploring 6 gigahertz for my networks at this time. I'm not exploring, I mean.
So we'll just let the poll run for a few more seconds to give everyone a chance to submit their results to us, and then I will share them.
Matthew, I don't run too much. I prefer a bike.
I'm loving the results coming in so far. I mean, these are really interesting results. I like it. I like what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's show everyone.
Stu likes it. Let's show everyone else then. So the results are in, and 23% said that you are already using 6 gigahertz access points for designs and your deployments. But a big percentage of you, nearly 60%, saying that you are considering upgrading to 6 gigahertz access points within the next 2 years, which is kind of what we would expect, especially with seeing a lot more 6 gigahertz capable devices come into the market, you know, with Apple's and what we expect probably in around September this year, the new iPhone supporting 6 gigahertz. I don't blame everyone for starting to think about, you know, getting ready for 6 gigahertz, because once these devices start supporting 6 gigahertz, they're going to be wanting to connect to those 6 gigahertz networks. And the benefit of having your networks ready, designed, deployed that can support these 6 gigahertz devices, it will benefit your older devices as well. As the more and more devices that come along that support 6 gigahertz that start to use that frequency band, that'll mean that'll be less devices using the previous frequency bands like 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So therefore improving the experience for your newer devices and older devices. I think it's a really exciting time to be in Wi-Fi right now with 6 gigahertz. So that being said, let me stop sharing and we can continue on. We believe at Ekahau that everyone can have great Wi-Fi if you follow our 3 easy steps to great Wi-Fi every day. But what we're trying to basically say here is that Ekahau is with you at every step of the Wi-Fi lifecycle. So Ekahau will be there for when you're designing wireless networks, whether you're validating your wireless networks, or even if you're just trying to maintain the network that you've deployed recently and make it stay high performing by doing lots of regular health check surveys. Ekahau and your Sidekick 2 is with you at every single step of the way. We love that slide, and we also love this slide because we've broken it down in the 3 different categories into ways that we would maybe just describe different types of surveys that we would be doing at those steps. So I'll let Mac talk you through that.
Yeah, this slide, my friends, is very shocking to sales typically, because when you ask a salesperson, what can you sell or do in Wi-Fi, you will pretty much always get an answer, a Wi-Fi survey. But as you can see on the slide, there are different types of Wi-Fi surveys, right? So we've divided it into 3 steps. The first step would be the Wi-Fi design survey. That's where tons of people, they are skipping this extremely important part, extremely important step. When you do a design or a redesign of a Wi-Fi network, if it's a bigger network than just a few access points, you really want to get to the site first to understand what's happening there. And you do that as part of the Wi-Fi design survey. You want to understand the RF condition, radio frequency condition, the impact of your neighbors on your new Wi-Fi network after you install it, the DFS activity that might knock off the 5 gigahertz channel of your list, of your channel list. You want to absolutely spotlessly measure walls attenuation, and we will show you how to do it automatically. Because if you assume wall attenuation that is incorrect in your design and it's vastly different, then your design might not going to work. And most importantly, or as importantly, you really want to understand the limitations of mounting your access points and antennas. Where are the preferred locations where you can and cannot run the cable? You can't do that just looking at the plan. So you need to go to the site, you need to take your measurement device, which will be a Sidekick 2, and you will do all of that I have mentioned. Then you move to the next step, which is a predictive Wi-Fi design in Ekahau AI Pro. And if this is a difficult design, industrial space, a warehouse, a superboat, whatever, where it's very difficult to predict the propagation of Wi-Fi RF waves, then you want to take your AP on a stick, you need to take your access point, put it on the AP on a stick, you want to get the exact type of antenna that you are going to be using in your new deployment, and you want to validate your design with AP on a stick survey. So you will put it on a tripod somewhere and do a mini survey around it. And then if the pre-deployment AP on a stick survey matches your design, then you've done a good job. If it doesn't match your design, you have to adjust your design so there is one-to-one match. Okay, that's the very important part of the survey. And then when you validated everything, you're happy with your design, you go for the deployment phase, right? So now you are mounting the access points, following your instructions that you put inside Ekahau AI Pro. You give it to the mounting cabling team. They put everything up, everything is working. And then the next step, a week or 2 weeks later, after you let it settle in a little bit, so your network is running optimal channels at optimal power levels, you've adjusted whatever you wanted to adjust, you go back to the site and do a post-deployment survey to make sure that the network operates exactly as it should be operating. So if you've designed a Wi-Fi network to cater for voice or video, now it's a perfect time to get the corporate device, get on the call, walk around the office, make sure that it roams fast, roams reliably, that it doesn't drop, and do a survey to validate that you have a signal strength, secondary signal strength, and everything is tip-top and spotless. Lastly, you have step-3 health checks that covers the validation, periodic health check surveys and troubleshooting surveys. So why would you need to do a health check survey? Periodically, every few weeks or every few months, depending on your capacity, you want to walk around and do a quick survey to find devices that should not be connected to Wi-Fi, should not be broadcasting Wi-Fi, like TVs, like printers, or maybe media sharing devices that are occupying entire UNI-1 band, and they shouldn't. They're using wide channels, contributing to retransmissions and collisions. You don't want that. So you want to quickly find those devices, remove them. You want to check if the layout of the office is the same as it was when you were designing for it. Something has changed, perhaps new meeting rooms, new partition walls. You want to be able to find out that stuff. And finally, the troubleshooting. There are 3 steps to troubleshooting, my friends. First and easiest is to do the survey. If you can walk your dog, or if you're a crazy person like me, you can walk your cat, then you can do a survey. You can strap a Sidekick 2 on your cat, depending on the cat size. I probably wouldn't. I cannot mind because I have a Maine Coon, that massive cat. So he will be fine with wearing a Sidekick. But on a dog, fine, okay? You can do a quick survey and it will reveal, let's say, finger in the air, 95% of issues in your Wi-Fi network. If you still don't find what you're looking for, the network does not work as expected, and you want to dive deeper, then you would revert to on-the-spot Wi-Fi scanning with Sidekick 2 again, and our Ekahau Analyzer mobile application, where you look into beacons to understand what's happening in your network, what's wrong, and what is the misconfigurations of your network. Vendor agnostic, doesn't matter. And then the last part would be packet capture, and we will talk about that a little bit later.
Mac, people want to see your cat now. After you said that, you're gonna have to at some point get him in and
They do. I think he sleeps in my other room. Give me a sec.
Whilst Mac is finding his cat, we've got this amazing flyer, this resource that we're going to just talk through in a few moments time. But you will be able to download this flyer and have it handy on your device with you, which is our 6 tips for super accurate Wi-Fi site surveys. And I'll start with the first tip, actually. Well, whilst Mac is coming in with his cat, he's gonna steal the show. So I'll just let him. There you go. It's taking
Ninja. Say hello. So this cat is called Ninja. If I have another one, I will call him Wi-Fi.
So there's that's a big cat. People are saying that's not a cat, Mac, that's a tiger. But moving on back to the tips for accurate site surveys is the first one, the most important one, is scaling your floor plan. So we can't stress the importance enough of accurately scaling your floor plans. Everything that you do in Ekahau and Wi-Fi is all distance related. So we couldn't recommend highly enough getting yourself something like a laser measure. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. You can buy it very cheaply, probably online somewhere. But it's one of your best friends to take with you on site in your toolkit. Go on site, verify the measurement between two walls to get the distance, and just make sure that you put an accurate scale. I see a lot of people when they're scaling their floor plans is that they would use a door to do the scale. And the problem with when you do a door, because it's such a short distance, if you're even off by just a couple of centimeters, when you amplify that across a larger floor plan, that 2 meters can quite quickly become something much bigger. So big tip, make sure you scale your floor plan properly.
Exactly. And the second tip, use the Sidekick too for the reasons mentioned before: accuracy, predictability. And if you do it multiple times or with multiple units, you want to be able to have comparable results. And also you don't want to do stop and go in 2023. You want to be able to run around your office and scan all three bands at the same time. And Sidekick is pretty much the only device that can give you all of that, scan Wi-Fi and Spectrum at the same time.
Yep. Tip number 3 is making sure you scan the proper channels. So let me just give you an example. Perhaps you were doing a challenging environment that Mac was talking about earlier, where you was doing an AP on a stick type of survey, and then maybe you set your Sidekick to be locked onto just the channels of your test device that was broadcasting. So maybe you asked it just to scan 3 channels whilst you were doing that type of that survey. Then you want to find out more information about the environment that you're in, perhaps how many interferers they might have, rogue devices, etc., etc. So then you would want to make sure that you reconfigure the Sidekick to scan all of the available channels. And if you're ever in a situation where perhaps maybe you don't care about 2.4 gigahertz, and you've got just 5 and 6 gigahertz networks, then maybe you could disable the Sidekick 2 to scan on the 2.4 channels, and then just focusing on the 5 and 6 gigahertz channels, and then it would speed up the time for it to go through and collect all of that data. So just making sure you capture on the channels that you really care about.
Totally. And now I think this is one of the most important tips ever to capture accurately. So you go to the site, you start walking around, you click where you are to correlate your position, Sidekick's position, with a position on the map, and then you continue walking around the building doing a autopilot survey or continuous survey, or if you're a hardcore, then you can do stop and go, be my guest, or GPS survey. And when you click where you are, not where you're going to be in 5 seconds or 10 seconds. A quick example. Sometimes you will be surveying fancy places and you have a fountain in the middle, and then you click on one side of the fountain, then you start walking around, and then you clicked on the other side of the fountain. What Ekahau will draw is a line through the fountain. So if your client asks you if you're a Jesus, and you shockingly ask, why do you ask if I'm a Jesus? They will say, can you walk on water? Why do you ask? Oh, because you walked in the middle through the fountain. And then you say, oh, sorry, I misclicked. And your entire reputation goes out of the window, because they will start asking, oh, where else did you misclick? So be careful with that, capture accurately. Additionally, walk on both sides of everything. But I think we have another tip that talks about just that.
There you go. Mac always trying to steal my thunder. Tip number 5, walk on both sides. Can't stress this enough. You know, if you want to know the attenuation of a certain type of wall in your environment, if you only go on one side of that wall and you're just guessing what is going to be on the other side, you could get really caught out. The amount of times that we have seen what looks to be simple drywall or sheetrock, but actually that drywall was covering brick, and then it goes drywall, brick wall, drywall, and the attenuation is a lot more than what you was planning for. That can really impact your designs, impact the performance of the network that you were planning to have in that room adjacent to where that wall is. And it's really key, really crucial that you make sure you go on both sides of what you care about, especially because we're going to be talking about one of the amazing new features in Ekahau AI Pro just in a few moments time, called the wall calibration tool. where Ekahau can actually automatically calculate the attenuation values of your materials on site, but only if you capture enough data. And that's what we mean by walking on both sides of the walls that you care about. So
let me just add a quick thing here. If you have like a small room in the middle, like a font booth or something that is insulated with thick-ish walls or walls that are highly attenuative, and you walk around that booth, by default, Ekahau will predict the signal propagation plus minus, 2 meters on both sides. So it can predict that there is a perfect signal inside the room. If you walk inside that room and then you measure that there is not enough signal, then this will be displayed on your survey results. But if you won't walk into that room, then it will be predicted and not measured. So always both sides of the walls and walk in everywhere. And finally, guys, use the correct survey method for your environment. You will see how we've done the autopilot survey on Cisco Live. So that's actually a very, very cool way of capturing survey data. This is our #1 go-to mode when we capture survey data. You will see why in a second. Is the fastest and most accurate when you do it correctly. Stop and go, I would say it's obsolete a little bit, but funnily enough, it's extremely, extremely popular still. That is why it's still in the application. Many people, they use it, and it's not a mistake. It's just slower, and you throw away some data, and you have to go somewhere, click, wait for a few seconds. Sidekick will capture information on all the channels multiple times, take averages, and then drop the point on the map. Then you move 2 meters away. You do that again. If it's a very small office, then it's fine. But if it's a warehouse or an airport, then you're there for a year and you still won't finish. That's why you probably will prefer to do continuous if you can't do autopilot, or autopilot if your devices, they give you autopilot capabilities. I mean, your devices now, Matthew will probably smile, the Apple fanboy, because you need to have the Apple device with the AR kit built into it, preferably with radar on the back of your device, in order for your device to be able to position itself very nicely on a map. So instead of just talking about it, Matt, let's take a look at the Autopilot demo, and you walk us through what you see.
Absolutely. I'm just going to share this here. Okay.
Or do I walk us through?
You're supposed to be walking us through this.
Okay, cool. So let's do it then. Gentlemen, you can see Matthew, our beautiful short model. Now he's clicking where he is, and it's highlighted in red, and he walks to the other side of this doors, roll-up doors thing. Now his device has calibrated its position and correlated his position with a map, and he walks around without clicking anything, okay, without clicking anything. And it's extremely massively accurate. Sometimes after a few hundred meters, you might want to correct it back, but sometimes we are able to do like 2 kilometer service without having to click a single time on the screen. So that's absolutely amazing. You don't have to hold your device in a weird way. All it takes is just to make sure that you see through the camera stuff in front of you, see the floor, that you have some light. It might not work too well if it's pitch black, dark, and then it will just work. The most important stuff is to do the initial calibration correct. If you do that over the longer distance, then it's going to work. Take our word for it, it's going to work. If it doesn't work, then either your floor plan is not up to scale, or it's not scaled correctly, or you are not clicking accurately, okay? That's the Autopilot demo.
Thank you very much, Mac. And yeah, and just like what Mac said earlier, it's our go-to method for when we want to capture our measured data on site. You saw it working there live, and the fact that you don't have to just do it on your iPad. You can do this on your iPhone as well, and you can connect it to your Sidekick too, and you simply just calibrate your distance when you start doing your autopilot survey, and then you just walk around and collect the data. So now it's become extremely easy and so much more mobile to collect that accurate measured survey data, which then anyone can analyze later on. And when we were talking about the dongles earlier, remember when you used to have the laptop harness dongles drawing power from your device? Those days are long gone. Thank goodness for that. And we can do and capture data so nicely with the Sidekick 2 and your mobile devices. It really was a game changer for me. I saw a lot of people in the chat saying how nice that works and how cool it is. And yeah, we couldn't agree anymore. We absolutely love using Autopilot surveys. So that was a demo for how you can capture data with the Sidekick 2. What we want to do now is actually give you a demo of analyzing some 6 gigahertz data which was collected with the Sidekick 2. So what we've got here is our fantastic Ekahau Helsinki office based in Finland, and we had some 6 gigahertz access points dotted about the office. We went for a walk with the Sidekick 2, captured the data just like you saw before, and we're ready to analyze some of the metrics now inside of Ekahau AI Pro. So we captured the data with our survey application and our Sidekick 2. We synced it back to Ekahau Insights, and then we can open a project in Ekahau AI Pro to do our analysis. So what we've got here is all of these blue AP icons. These are the 6 gigahertz devices in the Helsinki office. So what I can see is I click on the 6 gigahertz option down here, and we can take a look at the 6 gigahertz coverage coming from these access points. The primary coverage coming from these 6 gigahertz access points. And then let's say I want to check, I don't know, maybe the secondary signal strength. I can select the secondary signal strength, which is here. And then start to analyze the file on, 6 gigahertz. I could check on 5 gigahertz and also for the 2.4 gigahertz band. But since this was data collected on the Sidekick 2 with 6 gigahertz, I really want to take a look at this. So I can see that the coverage in the office isn't looking too great from a secondary coverage perspective of the 6 gigahertz wireless network. Well, coverage isn't the only thing that we need to have great Wi-Fi in our environments. There's lots of other things we need to make sure is working quite well. So one of the things I want to check is the channel interference. So I'm going to change the view now to channel interference. And what I can see is actually on 6 gigahertz, we've got quite a bit of channel interference. So anywhere that is not green, so all of these gray areas over here, this means that we've got more than one device sharing the same channel, which is what we want to try to avoid as much as possible. So with 6 gigahertz comes a dilemma on what channel width we should be using for our 6 gigahertz channels. And what we can see here is actually all of the 6 gigahertz access points that we have got installed here, they're either using 80 megahertz wide channels, or actually even some of them are using 160 megahertz wide channels. So that's taking up quite a big chunk of the 6 gigahertz spectrum. If I wanted to ask Ekahau, hey Ekahau, how is the performance of my Wi-Fi network, and just show me a simple green pass or red fail, I can choose the network health visualization. And looking at the network health visualization, I can quickly see at a glance, is my wireless network meeting my requirements? And unfortunately, it is not. So what I need to do is I actually need to redesign this wireless network and come up with a good design for the position of the access points and also the configuration of the access points. So to come up with a new design for the office, one of the things that I'm going to need to know is, for building my predictive model, my simulation, is the exact attenuation values for the building materials on site. So if I just go to the empty visualization right now, and we don't see any heat maps coming from our access points, what you'll notice is the green lines that you can see, these are the survey paths for when we was doing our survey on site. But what you can see is that we've drawn the wall values now for the material. So you can see all of the wall values, they have been drawn inside of this file. And what we've done is we've used the typical standard default values for the different types of walls that we've got, for drywall, interior glass, different kind of doors, and different kinds of like concrete, like cinder block and stuff. But these are just values that I put in before I actually went on site and gathered the actual real measured attenuation. Now, before the days of using our amazing new feature, which I'm going to show you in a second, to get the accurate attenuation values of these materials, what you would have needed to have done is set up a test access point, if there wasn't one already at the site, at least 4 to 5 meters away from the attenuation material that you want to test. So for example, this glass window here. And then what you would do is you'd go on one side of the wall with your Sidekick 2, and you'd wait there for a few moments, collect some measurement data readings from that access point that you've got in your environment. Then you would go onto the other side of the wall, go to that same location, but just on the other side, look at those readings. And then what you would do is you would just balance out basically the difference between the two. So if on one side of the wall, you saw it say that you had minus 55 dBm signal strength, and then you go onto the other side of the wall and you have minus 58 dBm in signal strength, you would know that the attenuation value of that wall was 3 dBs. But when you've got lots of different wall types to be testing throughout the site, this can be quite a long, time consuming, tedious process. So what I want to show you is this new feature in Ekahau called our wall calibration feature. So to go to launch it, you go to Actions, Wall Calibration. And what this is going to do is pop up this window where it's basically going to be showing us the different types of wall types that we have got drawn throughout our predictive model. So we can see our values here. And then we break it down by the 3 different Wi-Fi frequencies, 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz. And then on the left-hand side is the value that I have put in myself for that attenuation value. And on the right-hand side is the suggested new attenuation value that Ekahau has calculated based on measured survey data collected with the Sidekick 2 and comparing it to the survey pass via the wall segments that you've got. So actually, the interior glass that I thought would only be 1 dB of attenuation on 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz, Ekahau has actually calculated that to be 6 dBs. So that is a 5 dB difference, which is quite the difference in attenuation value. Then on the right-hand side, we have our quality measurement here. So we can see that these quality indicators are all saying good. This means that there was enough data collected with the Sidekick and your survey paths on either side of the walls. Anywhere else where it says not applicable or poor, it just means that you didn't walk on either side of the walls and be able to collect that data. So for our exterior walls and our exterior windows, that's expected. But for the ones inside of the building, we can apply those changes simply by hitting apply, or you can hit apply all and it will apply all of those changes for you. And I can press close. And then now when I select a wall type, you will now see that that interior glass has gone from being a 1 dB attenuation value to a calibrated 6 dB attenuation. And I'm now ready to start building my accurate predictive model. So what I would like to do in this point is I would probably save this as a new file called my predictive design. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete my surveys from here. So I can basically have just predicted data in here, no measured data. So I'm just going to delete all my survey paths. And what that's going to do is going to remove all of that measured survey data now. And what I'm ready to do is I'm ready to select my access point that I would like to use for my design. We've got 4,000 to 5,000 different model access points, but I'm going to pick the latest Cisco 6 gigahertz capable access point, the 9166. Then now if I go to the signal strength view, when I place my access point, here, what I can see is that I'm now ready to start creating my predictive design for the office with real collected data and real attenuation values for the materials on site. And then the last thing I want to show you is sometimes I like to use this feature called our coverage planning feature. Where are you? Okay, here he is. And then what this does, it shows you live the coverage from your access point before you place it. So as I move this around the office, before I actually left click and put it in its position, it shows me what my coverage is going to be before I place it. So I know before I start placing my access points that I'm going to make sure that I'm meeting my coverage requirement before I actually place it. And once I'm happy, I can simply just left click and then, place my access points around the office and then put one over here, come back, check my signal strength and make sure I'm all happy with my coverage. And then very finally, the last thing I would need to do is come up with a good channel plan for my network. And I can simply click our channel planner, select the channels that I want to include for my 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz wireless networks. And all I do is I simply hit create. And then what Ekahau will do is it will look at your requirements and come up with a channel plan for you to meet your requirements. So I can now see that my Channel interference is passing for 100% on 5 and 6 gigahertz. How about if we look at our network health visualization? Looks good, apart from over here in this right-hand corner where I wonder what the issue is. Maybe I need to install another access point over there. Let me check the network issues. Yeah, secondary signal strength. You would have thought working in Wi-Fi for all these years in Ekahau, I could design a proper wireless network now, maybe. So there we go. That's just how you can use our wall calibration tool and come up with a really accurate predictive model for your designs. Matt.
Beautiful demo, Matthew. Thank you very much for that insight. It was practical, mind-blowing, and interesting all at the same time. What would we have done without you, my friend? Okay, so now let's switch our mindset a little bit to spectrum analysis. So we've talked about the Wi-Fi bit a little bit, all the RSSIs and showing the signal strength and secondary signal strength using our RSSI readings captured with a Sidekick on site to automatically calibrate the walls for us, creating amazing models of the buildings that you will then use to design spotlessly your Wi-Fi networks. Important stuff. Now let's talk about wireless but non-Wi-Fi stuff. So what you can see here on the screen is actually, as in WLPC Phoenix early last year, sitting in the classroom where the red dot shows, and we've been capturing the stuff. I say stuff because we've been capturing different things with different devices in the same place on the desk. On the left-hand side, you can see channel utilization as was measured by a Sidekick as part of doing a Wi-Fi survey, a Wi-Fi walkabout, walking the dog around the perimeter with a Sidekick strapped to his neck. Okay, that's what we're doing here. And the channel utilization on the left-hand side, it shows the 0 to 10% channel utilization. Cool. Now, on the right-hand side, we also look at channel utilization, but now we are not measuring it with a Sidekick. We are listening to beacons and advertisements from OBSS field inside the beacon as broadcasted by the access point, where the AP tells us, guys, this is my channel utilization from my perspective. And it's not 0 to 10%, it's 36%. So why is it a difference on the left and on the right-hand side? And that is a very good question. So let's move to the next slide, Matthew. So what we've seen on the left-hand side is a physical channel utilization as measured by a spectrum analyzer inside of our beautiful, fantastic Sidekick, okay? So this measures just the physical density of the energy, electromagnetic energy in the air, Wi-Fi, non-Wi-Fi, whatever. If you have the energy, you will show that. If you don't have the energy, it will be a flat line. And then it calculates the percentage of time where we've seen the energy in the air at certain amplitudes, okay? So that's the physical utilization from a Sidekick. Now, moving to the right-hand side, we have also a channel utilization reported by the access point, but now this is being from the logical perspective. Again, spectrum analyzer on the left is physical. I see the energy or not. On the right-hand side is logical. And it's vastly different because Wi-Fi works like this. Only one device in Wi-Fi will attempt to transmit at the same time, okay? If you have multiple devices transmitting at the same time, and it is going to happen sometimes, then we will have a collision, retransmission, and those devices will go back to the queue, and now they will have to wait longer until they attempt to send anything, transmit anything again. And whilst they are sitting on the back of timers, physically, the medium is not busy, but logically, they are waiting. They are busy waiting, okay? Logically, they are waiting. That is why where you have especially networks with lots of collisions and retransmissions, you will see a big difference between a physical and logical channel utilization. Physical will be lower than logical because of your devices are waiting on the back of timers in a really, really, really busy networks with collisions. Cool. So that's the difference between the physical and logical channel utilization. Now let's talk about what types of devices can affect our Wi-Fi operation working in the wireless space, but not necessarily Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that we have this spectrum analyzer built into the Sidekick 2, because as you walk around the environment with the Sidekick 2, it is not only, like Max said, capturing that information coming from the access points, but also there are so many non-Wi-Fi devices out there that if they are in your environment, they're going to be wreaking havoc to your Wi-Fi performance, and you can find them and locate them and track them down with your Sidekicks. So it's really important that you bear this in mind, because when access points detect, let's say a microwave oven gets switched on 2.4 gigahertz, if access points nearby to where this microwave oven is can hear this microwave oven creating energy on the channel, your access points will just back off and then stop transmitting. And if your access points just back off and stop transmitting, what happens to your client devices? Like, there's no more Wi-Fi for the client devices to connect to your access points. So there's lots and lots of different devices out there. We're seeing a lot more devices move into the 5 gigahertz frequency band, which is concerning, because then that removes some of the channels that we'll be able to use for our designs, for our deployments. And we really want to locate them, reconfigure them, remove them, and then get them out of our network. And I think, Mac, you actually have a good demo around spectrum analysis lined up for everybody now. So why don't I stop sharing so then you can show everybody?
Okie doke. Thank you very much, Matthew. You should see my screen. So guys, what we see here is just the office with a decent design. And as part of this design, we can see access points like several meters away from each other. Some of them, they are quite close, but in biggish meeting rooms, so we can forgive that stuff. But what I want to focus on is the channel utilization visualization, where we see how often the spectrum was used across multiple frequency bands. So now I'm looking at 5 gigahertz. And when I just zoom in here, let me clean up the plan a little bit. Okay, I want to go to view, and I want to not look at my areas. On top of it, I want to see my survey routes to validate where my surveyor went in, if everything was covered on both sides and stuff like that. So what is happening here? Why is it red? Great question. Like, look at the legend. All around the office, we can see green channel utilization, meaning 0, 10, 20% of utilization. That's normal stuff with not too busy office. But in this staircase, we see 100%. So let's validate. Let's go back in time and see what the Sidekick has seen when we were doing the survey. So I will move into the Inspect tab. And when I zoom in, you can see all these little dots. These dots, this is the dump of data across all the channels, all frequency bands captured with a Sidekick. And actually, let me zoom that out. These are my Wi-Fi channels, like all these things that I can highlight here. These are my Wi-Fi signal, but all the colorful things, this is my spectrum from layer 1 physical perspective. And we can see some weird things there. So let's zoom in a little bit into that stuff. Can anyone tell me what it looks like? What do you think this interference could be? And Matthew doesn't count.
I never count.
Anyone?
So yeah, anyone let us know in the chat what you think this interfering device is on 5 gigahertz.
Already have a very good answers there. It's not a microwave. It's not a Bluetooth. I will show you Bluetooth. Microwave is on 2.4, not on 5. And this is, my friends, a motion sensor. It's a little bit too narrow for being a camera, and it's very spiky, and it has a very, very high channel utilization. So when you look at the channel utilization across these channels, 153 and 157, it reaches like 80-ish%. By the way, it's not possible to reach 100% or even 80-ish% in Wi-Fi alone. Because of protocol overhead, you won't see physical spectrum utilization exceeding like 70-80%. So we can see that this is not Wi-Fi, most likely. And looking at the spectrum, we can see definitely that this is not Wi-Fi. So how would the Wi-Fi look like? If I move around my building and I can move my slider to move back in time, like in and out, I will find a place where there is something more happening, hopefully, in this office. Oh, there we go. So let me zoom in here. And this is, my friends, a Wi-Fi transmission. I can see that this is like the empty null carriers of the OFDM transmission. This is a typical look of the Wi-Fi transmission. So we can differentiate between Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi. Without spectrum analyzer, there is no chance in hell we would be able to differentiate between non-Wi-Fi interferers, Wi-Fi radios. We just wouldn't know. So it's great to know that we have just knocked uni-free spectrum band from our channel plant around these staircases because of the motion sensors. Cool. Now let's spend a second talking about the real stuff. So we are looking at my Sidekick sitting on my desk here. It's connected to my MacBook, and we are looking at the spectrum analysis on a 5 gigahertz band. That's the channel that I'm operating on, and I'm sitting on like missed AP, whatever, 40 megahertz, neg 59, neg 41. That's actually where I'm associated. You can see it here. And now, what does that mean? The colors here, they mean the spectrum utilization in percentage. So it gets reddish sometimes, like a slight red. So I would say that my channel utilization, looking at the legend, it doesn't exceed like 20–30% when I'm on a Zoom call with you guys, okay? If I have multiple computers on a Zoom call, I would go to like 30% perhaps. And the rule of thumb is, actually the sustained utilization will be lower than this. So let's take a look at that. The utilization over time is actually 10–11%, 12%, 8%. You can see that here. So my utilization spikes at 20–30%, but it averages out on around 10. So I have enough capacity, just looking at that, for more devices like my MacBook being connected to the network and still give me good voice quality, because 20% of spectrum utilization, like over time, is the threshold considered to be a good utilization for voice. If you exceed 20% over time, then it's a little bit, excuse me, too much. Cool. So that's the spectral density of a signal. Height of it means amplitude. You can see on the left there is an amplitude, and color is the spectrum utilization over time. And this, my friends, is a new view over 5 seconds. This shows you the waterfall graph, the amplitude of signal in the air over time. And now you can see how fast it is. Actually, it's twice as fast for me than it is for you. On Zoom, you will see like up to 25 frames. I'm looking at it at 50 frames per second. It's unbelievably fast, unbelievably small, smooth, and a very high resolution. I can see everything there. So that's 5 gigs. Let's very quickly jump into 6 gigahertz. I appreciate it's 1 past, so it won't take me more than like 2 minutes. That's my access point hidden in the cupboard downstairs with just like 1 or 2 devices connected to it. It's doing background sync. That's 6 gigahertz. Not too much happening there. So before we wrap up, let's take a look at 2.4. And I have a bonus for you. I have a camera. I have a lovely little camera, okay? And I will connect it to mains. Look what happens. Yep. And now my camera starts to kill my spectrum. So what's happening there? You can see around channel 11, we have quite a lot of red. And this is a typical look at the camera. The main spike is a video stream, and the small spikes on the left and then the right-hand sides, these are the audio, stereo audio from that particular camera. Now, another thing that is worth noticing, what happened to my beacons on channel 11? I used to have my missed AP on channel 11. I could hear my neighbors on channel 11. I can't hear them anymore. What does that mean? Does it mean that they've stopped broadcasting? And the answer is most likely.
What it means, Mac, is your neighbors no longer like you because you've broken their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, they don't like me because my cat likes to crap on their front lawn. So that's probably the reason, but maybe it's Wi-Fi. I don't know. Now, guys, my camera is close to my Sidekick. So my Sidekick doesn't have enough SNR from beacons, from the access points, to be able to demodulate that stuff on channel 11 because I'm killing it on channel 11. Now, I will move my camera farther away from the Sidekick. I will move my Sidekick farther away from my camera. Sidekick is on the floor now. I'm holding my camera in my hands, and let's see if I can see Wi-Fi back. Can I see that? Can I not see that? Do I have to bring it even farther away from the Sidekick? Shall I put it behind my speaker? So the camera is so strong that even if I have a Sidekick and my camera 2 meters apart, oh, there we go. We have a beacon. Look at that. Welcome back. My laptop, my Sidekick could demodulate the signal for a second there. Okay, now it's gone again. And the second I disconnect that camera, bam, it's disconnected. I will see my Wi-Fi back, and it's back. Welcome back, Wi-Fi Ninjas to SSID. And that is, my friends, everything that I wanted to show you today when it comes to spectrum analysis. Maybe worth mentioning a BLE channels. You can see BLE before channel 1, between 3 and 4, and then after 11, you have BLE advertisement channels as well. Okay, so let's go back to these slides quickly so we can wrap up. And yeah, I think this one.
Try the next one. Oh no.
This one.
Yeah.
There we go.
So it should play, because the other thing that the Sidekick 2 does, when you use the Ekahau analyzer, it turns your mobile device into an absolutely troubleshooting powerhouse. I guarantee that you will not be able to, there's no wireless network that you won't be able to fix with a combination of Survey, Sidekick 2, Survey app on the Sidekick 2, plus the Analyzer app and the Sidekick 2. Everything that you can see here in the Analyzer application, you can quickly check the health of your wireless network, how it's performing, on the spot troubleshooting, connectivity checks. You can see this network overview feature where it's showing you all this information coming from the beacon frames. And if you're looking closely, you might notice something else that's coming to the Analyzer app that we...
and I think that answers your question, Steve, from the chat. Yeah. Packet capture on Sidekick 2. Look closely.
You might see it there. And we're going to have a very special webinar coming up very soon. We're going to be talking about this in a lot more detail. So keep your eyes peeled for that and make sure that you're registered for that one, because it's going to be coming very, very soon. So we just wanted to quickly show you some of the things you can do to become a superhero with the Sidekick 2. And of course, Mac, if people want to get their hands on the Sidekick 2,
of course,
how do they do it?
So yeah, guys, sales pitch time, my favorite. So if you want to get this amazing device, do it now. It's not as expensive as you might think it is. It's packed with all the goodness. It has tons of cards in it. It's fast to scan Wi-Fi on all 3 bands simultaneously. Spectrum analysis, highest resolution on the market, fast, properly fast, and accurate every single time you use that. So please do get one, especially now, because as you can see from the data we captured, 6 gigahertz is no longer a gimmick or a nice to have. The second new iPhone is released, it becomes a commodity. And now pretty much all the new orders, they get 6 gigahertz. And whilst Sidekick 1 is still amazing, it stays amazing for 2.4 and 5. And you either do today or you will need 6 gigahertz very, very soon. That's the salesy Mac for you. And guys, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for being here. It's a blast as always. We love you so much, and we already can't wait for the webinar in 2 weeks' time.